Welcome to Barely Filtered. Today is actually a back-to-back recording. I haven't done those in some time because generally I find that after like one solid conversation, I'm pretty burned out. But I'm about to go to Rhode Island for the summer. My sister's having a wedding, so I'm going to be off recording for a few weeks. So we're like banking up for them. And I have two really amazing guests today that I'm really excited about. So my life coach, who is one of my son's best friend's moms, she like the day before I started talking to this guy, I made a list with her of the strict 7. And I think I told you guys about the strict 7. It was like 3 that she comes up with and then 4 that you come up with about your non-negotiables. And one of her 3 that she adds in that's like part of her course is that you can't sleep with the person until either 3 months or 5 dates or commitment. Pretty sure that's the rule. And she was so mad at me because I went to Boston to hang out with him and we committed to each other on the first date. So if you think I'm celibate, I'm not. I did get a voicemail from somebody being like, what's it like to be celibate? And I'm like, why did these people think I'm celibate? And then my manager had to remind me that I told everybody that I wasn't going to be having any sex until I was in a committed relationship. And it just happened really quickly. Now, I know what you're all thinking. It wasn't too many episodes ago where I was dating somebody who happened to have a full-on family and was conning me. And yes, that is true. There's not been that much time since then, but this is different. And I guess time's just going to have to prove it to everybody, because even like my sister, I was like, can I bring him to the wedding? And she's like, she basically said no, because I'm like the boy who cried wolf at this point. Like when I say I like somebody, everyone's like, okay, all right, well, that's really nice, sweetie. I'm like, no, this one's, I'm serious. But I don't know. Like, I don't want him to listen to this episode and then be like, oh God, that's kind of red flaggy, which it does sound. I would think that if I heard somebody that I was dating say that, but I think it is true. I tend to want to see the best in people, but everything has been so good with this guy that I've been seeing. First of all, you guys are going to think I'm crazy for this too. He met my kids. He brought us to a rugby game, which feels also weird, but it's not. It's like he's on the business side of this rugby team, trying to kind of bring it to life again, because like Americans don't really like rugby. I don't know. But anyway, he's invested in this team and he's like, do you want to go? It's in Carson, which is like kind of close to where I live. I was like, okay, I'll bring my kids. My kids are so young that it's like, it's not really a big deal like introducing them to somebody, because everybody's just a friend. It's like, do you have treats or do you not have treats? They don't care. Otherwise, they don't care. And he had treats. So he was good in their book. And he just was like really sweet, like making an effort, talking to them. I will say this other, the con artist guy, also, I hate to say it, did meet my kids as well. He brought us to Disney and he was weird. Like, he didn't even talk to them. Like, my kids are freaking adorable. They're almost 6 and almost 4. They're little kids. I mean, like, if you can't come up with like something fun to say to little kids, then you're just like, that was the first major red flag with con artist guy. I was like, you're not like, it was like a nice gesture to bring us all to Disney, but the fact that he wasn't able to like interact with them at all was just really weird to me. Odd. So this new guy that I'm seeing, he's been really sweet with my kids and like not trying to be their best friends, just very generous with his attention, and he was just sweet. Anyway, when I'm in Boston visiting him and I'm not with my kids, I feel very guilty. Because like anytime you're prioritizing a relationship when you could be with the kids will make a mother feel guilty. But now that me and my ex have like a strict 50-50 plan with the kids. So for a bunch of days in a row, I don't have the option to see them. So I'm just starting to feel like a little bit better about that. And then, so when I do have the chance to be with both of them at the same time, it's kind of a big deal. So I want to take advantage of that. And it's been great so far. We've been dating for like 4 weeks and I'm having to like clear my roster just having guys pop up being like, oh, when are you going to be in town? Do you want to go get drinks? And it, like, what do you say to that? Like, sorry, I'm off the market. I'm in a relationship. Like, is there a non-douchey way to politely tell somebody that you are not available anymore without feeling like you're rejecting them? I don't know. I think I just have a hard time like saying no in general to people and like disappointing somebody, but whatever. It is what it is. So yeah, I'm off the market. And what else is there to say about him? So sweet. So like we just really vibe. And I know you guys have heard me talk about the Pattern app before. The Pattern app is an app that can run your bond with another person based on their natal chart. So this is astrology. I know a lot of people don't love when I talk about astrology, but I'm going to do it because every single time I've run a bond with somebody, like you put in their birth info, you put in your birth info, you run the bond, it literally has been on the nose every time. I did it with the relationship I have with my ex-husband, with every boyfriend I've ever had in my life. I did it with the few recent disasters guys that I dated. And it literally warned me. It said, this is complicated. This is delicate. This is not it. And I was just kind of like waiting to see how it would play out, almost like testing the legitimacy of this app and of astrology. And it's so accurate. And so I did it with the new guy. And it says epic and outstanding. Then I also booked a one-on-one with my personal astrologer. Her name is Rose Theodora. You should follow her on Instagram. She does like, you can book her for an hour, and she went through like, you can put your birth chart and another person's birth chart like on top of each other. And so the relationship now becomes like its own chart. The relationship itself has its own natal chart essentially, which is interesting because if you look at the like personality of a relationship, the sun is different, the moon is different. So like it expresses differently, which is also important because I remember when I went to marriage therapy with my ex-husband, that was one of the things that she said, nothing about astrology, but kind of the same concept in a different language, where she was like, there's your reality, there's his reality, and then there's the relationship, or there's your truth, his truth, and then there's the relationship. And like, you always have to choose the relationship because otherwise, you know, it doesn't matter like if you're right, because you're right all by yourself on an island. And that's not what a relationship is. Anyway, it turns out neither of us chose the relationship in that one, but live and learn. So yeah, I'm happy and I'm having a great time. Okay, well, not giving too much away. The guy that I'm dating now, I'm also working on a show with him. I'm not going to say anything about it. And it's really interesting to have like a working dynamic with the person that you're also dating, because it's special to know that you can create with somebody and communicate well. I don't really know that I've had that with, I think in my past, I've always gone for somebody who's like really hyper masculine. And like with that always comes like weird kind of like toxic traits. And now I think I've found somebody who their communication style doesn't feminize them. Like the fact that we can communicate so well, work so well together, like doesn't feminize them to me. And in the past, for some reason it has, because I think I'm only really able to jive like that with like gay men or women. But in this case, it's like the full package, which is pretty amazing. And one of the things that's my biggest pet peeve is when people say words wrong. Like, okay, the con artist guy, he would always say especially. And that was like reason enough. When he first said especially, I was like, well, okay, this is the beginning of the end. I know that we will not end up together because, and I even actually was like, okay, well, maybe he doesn't realize he's saying it. I'm going to let him know. And he was like, and he denied it and then continued to say especially. Anyway, so this new guy has a better vocabulary than I do. And actually, I said something was eroded. And he's like, do you mean corroded? And I'm like, that is such a turn on. I'm like, yes, I did mean that. Don't ever correct me again. But no, I just like when people like have a good vocabulary and I don't catch them saying words wrong. It just turns me off. Even though my vocabulary is not perfect, but yours needs to be better than mine. You learn about yourself, you know, and this one has a great vocabulary. We communicate well and it's still sexy. So Today, I have on a very special guest. Her name is Lori Harder, and she is one of those people that just looks from a distance like she could do absolutely anything. She is a 3 times fitness world champion, an 11 times fitness cover model. She knows so much about sustainable health, about skincare. She just actually started a company called Glossy, which offers a daily beauty supplement on the cutting edge of skincare. It's a skin routine that you can drink. So it's collagen and has vitamins. And I got it in the mail and I've been drinking it all week. I actually didn't realize that was hers, but it's really good. So that's my objective opinion before I knew that. I've been loving that. She's the host of the chart-topping podcast Earn Your Happy with over 65 million downloads. And she's the author of best-selling book, A Tribe Called Bliss. Her biggest passion is creating projects and companies that support ambitious women to grow their businesses and dreams. So that's the reason I wanted to have her on, because I feel like one of my limiting beliefs is that I'm not good at business. I don't know how to start my own venture without a lot of assistance. And that I'm kind of like, I know that I have gifts and talents to offer any project, but I never feel like I'm the one who should be in charge of like the money or the finance or like the trajectory. So I know that that's probably not 100% true. And it's probably something that was just ingrained in my mind as a child growing up. And I'm excited to talk to somebody who has built several of her own mission-driven ventures and helped thousands of women start their own as well. So thank you so much for being with us today. So I already did your intro. So I read your long list of accolades. And I have to ask you, like, where did this drive start from? Like, where are you from? Where do we breed a woman like you?
Way up in the woods, you guys. Way up in the woods. Okay. For real.
For real. Are you from California?
No, I am from Upper Michigan. Okay. So most people don't know there's an upper portion to Michigan. They just think like Lower Michigan and Detroit. And I'm like, no, let's go way more north. It's not even connected to Lower Michigan. Okay. But truly, it was a really, really small town in the woods, like 2 to 3 hours from anything you would really call a city. And it was a fairly isolated childhood, because not only was it small, but I was raised in a religion where you could only associate with the people in the church.
Oh, so are we allowed to ask what religion?
I was raised Jehovah's Witness, so went door to door, and like literally for my whole life, I
imagine the doors were quite far apart.
Quite far. There was a lot of driving in between, and I can tell you, I think that a lot of the grit came from. I mean, you try selling the idea of maybe, like not living.
Yeah.
Like, try selling the Bible.
You're like the OG influencers. Like Jehovah's Witness are like like they're not going to take no for an answer. You guys, like, seriously, I never thought about it like that, but it makes sense.
I mean, my rejection rate was 100%. I never converted anyone. So I was like, oh, is there like, do people say yes?
So the resiliency from that.
I would say that that's where that originally came from, is we just got used to, which my family's still in it. I'm not anymore. I left when I was 18. But I think that is where I just got so used to, quite literally, doors slamming in your face.
Yeah. And you're like, that doesn't hurt me anymore. No. It's like, if I get one sale, then like this was like more success than my entire like childhood trying to sell Jehovah's Witness.
I was like, I've been doing this since I was 8. I'm 12 now. Like, this doesn't even bother me.
Oh my gosh. That is so funny. I had no idea about that. So when you were, I guess now I have so many more questions. So did you grow up thinking that you would be a woman in entrepreneurship?
No, I had never seen it.
Okay.
I had never seen it. I just thought that, I mean, for real, you were going to grow up, marry someone else, and you were going to like do that work.
Okay.
So you were going to get a job that just got you by, because it was about, to use biblical terms, like it was about treasures in heaven, not on earth. So you were just going to do that. So it wasn't until I was a teenager that I started getting little glimpses of like, wait a minute, what is this over here? I had a friend who lived like 3 hours away from me. And because we were only allowed to hang out with people in our congregation,
right?
If I wanted to make friends outside of like the 4 girls that were my age that we grew up with, like none of us totally were like best friends. There was one girl, but she was always grounded.
Yeah. Oh no. So like you had to hang out with these girls, but like you didn't actually click with them really?
Right. Totally. Because there's like 4 to pick from. Imagine that your whole life.
Yeah.
And so when I met this girl who was in that same religion, but 3 hours away, my parents were like, okay, we'll drive you back and forth. And so my family also, while being, they were really loving, we also struggled with our weight. Like everyone was overweight. And I heard my whole life, like, we just have bad genetics. Like it's just who we are. It's how we are. And so a couple things happened when I went to my girlfriend's house when I was 14. It was the first time I was allowed to stay for an entire week because my parents are like, if it's 3 hours away, like we're not coming to get you right away. And so I just watched this family live in a totally different way than we did. And they were a little bit more like, from congregation to congregation, the beliefs were a little bit different because it's like very isolated up there. So there was a slight difference in what I noticed. Like her parents were entrepreneurs and they had a little more money than us. And it wasn't necessarily like frowned upon. Like they had a boat. So I kind of like learned how to water ski with them. And then like we snowboarded with them. And also I ended up, after that first week, losing 5 pounds. Now, this is significant because we had gone on a diet when I was 8 years old, like as a family, like that was my first diet. And so up till 14, I'd never been able to lose I'd never lost weight because you can't really out train like a bad diet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a whole lifestyle change.
Yeah. It's a whole lifestyle change. So all of a sudden I asked my friend on the first night, I get to her house and I'm like, okay, so like, where's your snack drawer? Because I'm like feeling really snacky.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean a snack drawer? And I'm like, with like the Twizzlers and the M&Ms and like all the things. And she's like, we don't really keep that around the house, but we have an apple. Oh. And I'm like, an apple, like rude.
Yeah.
Like,
so mean.
So mean. Like, how could you do this? And so that was it. I kind of like slipped into their rhythm of just this healthier life. And we were always like outside and playing and all the things. And all of a sudden, it's like a week goes by and I just noticed like I didn't miss anything. In fact, I was having the time of my life. And then I got home, I was 5 pounds less. And so that was like the initial moment of realizing your environment is stronger than your willpower. I just had never had that moment of, wait a minute, so good or bad? You know how our parents are always like, don't hang out with that kid because they're a bad association. Well, if they're a good association, you will also change. And so that clicked for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to leave my house. And even though I loved my family, I knew at that moment, like some things with the religion weren't necessarily like really lining up for me. I was starting to have a lot of questions. And so at 14, I knew when I was 18, I was going to move out. After that week, I was like, I have to put myself in an environment that supports who I want to be. I didn't know who that was yet, but I knew that it was more than what I was seeing.
Yeah. I love that too from somebody who obviously you've built a lot with your own mind and your own 2 hands, but it sounds like what you're saying is that the people around you also make a big difference.
I think it's one of the biggest differences.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you and I know that you recently wrote a book and it's kind of one of the premises of this book is to select the people that you spend time with and your friends in a very intentional way. Can you tell us a little bit about this book?
Yeah. So the book was called Tribe Called Bliss. I actually wrote it in 2017, but it is like the premise of basically like everything I created. Yeah. So events and everything like that and just how I live my life. Because after moving out when I was 18, I had the realization like I had nobody, like not even family. Yeah. I didn't have friends.
Well, where did you move?
I moved to Madison, Wisconsin, or I'm sorry, is that the first place I moved? Yes, the first place I moved was Madison, Wisconsin, and it was with one of that girl that I went and stayed the week
for
with.
College or
she was going to college. Okay. I never graduated from high school.
Really?
Ever.
Oh my God.
Totally like never went to college, never graduated from high school because when when I was 14, my mom had a baby that was unexpected and they ended up going bankrupt at one point and my mom ended up going back to work and I stayed home and helped watch him for those 4 years while she went back to work and my dad was working as well.
Wow.
So that was like, I just was homeschooling and they thought I was doing my schoolwork and they were asking me and I'm like, yeah, it's great. No, I was not doing any of it. So like my education level stops at like 9th grade.
Well, literally. Your formal education level, I'm sure. Yeah.
Life education, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Just being in charge of a baby at that age is like, I feel like having my own baby that education was like a crash course I was not prepared for at 30.
Totally. And I don't have children now. We might, you never know. We tried for a really long time, but I think so much a part of that was like my friends were having kids in like 20s and early 30s. And I was like, I know what it, like already knew
You're like,
what
it's
it was
not
like.
that much fun, guys.
I was like, okay, have fun.
Have fun not sleeping.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. So you moved, I'm sorry, A Tribe Called Bliss. So we're going all over the place, but there's just so much to pick apart here. So you wrote a book 2017 called A Tribe Called Bliss. And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's the idea that you need to be in the rooms who people, they're like, your dreams are their reality. So you have to be in the rooms of the people who your dreams are their reality. They're living it. And you have to spot it. So that was one of the other things from my childhood was I never had the ability to spot it. Like, oh, that's my mom's friend. She's an entrepreneur. She does this. Like, I never saw that because that wasn't around me. So you can't have or even dream of achieving what you don't see or what you're around.
That makes sense.
So the faster you can put yourself in a room with someone who's living that dream, they're going to tell you how it actually works. So it's not just going to be like this elusive, oh yeah, it's just like this happened and this happened. Like we hear that a lot, right? I do a podcast too where it's like, okay, but what actually what actually happened? And did you struggle with it? Did you have anxiety the whole time? Like we put all these excuses up as to why we can't do things because we don't hear the whole story.
Like how many times did you fail?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, just also with having a podcast and then hearing somebody like Joe Rogan be like, yeah, it took me to like my 700th episode before I started seeing any success, you know?
Totally.
And we don't often see that. We just see the person who's already made it and we're like, oh, that looks nice. But then also I feel like a lot of times people are pushed away with their own feelings of jealousy.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you didn't ever have that?
No, I mean, we're women.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't know, competition. I feel like the older you get, I feel like it does get easier.
For sure.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think that I know how to transform it so fast now. I don't even feel it as jealousy anymore.
Right.
But that took a lot of work. So in the beginning, yes, the feelings of what you desire show up as jealousy. So that's actually a cool thing to even observe is like, oh, that's not a jealousy. That's a desire to have. Like you spotted something that you want.
Right.
And so whenever I feel jealous, I'm like, okay, cool. She's got something that you want. What is that and why? And then how did she do it? Because a lot of times when you figure out what the path actually looks like that she took, you won't be jealous anymore because the hard work, we're jealous because we think it was easy for them. And we're like, oh, it must just be easy for them. But if we saw all the hard work, you'd be like, oh, number one, that must mean I can do it too.
Right.
Number two, okay, she worked her ass off for that. So that's well-deserved.
Yeah.
So I think having those tools of realizing if you really dig deep, you have the ability to do it too. So there's no reason to be jealous.
Yeah.
And you can make it happen.
Yeah. I love that. So with A Tribe Called Bliss, was it inspired by feeling like you weren't surrounded by people that had your best interest in mind, or that were you talking about your family specifically?
Family and then friends. So the friend that I had grown up with who brought me obviously amazing things as well. As we were like in our, late teens, early 20s, she wasn't the best friend to be around. And there was just a lot of stuff that ended up happening. And I didn't even know what a good friend was. And I wasn't being a good friend either. I'd never seen that modeled either.
Yeah.
So, when I started having these like bigger dreams and goals, like I wasn't even sure what it was, but I knew I was always into fitness magazines. I thought I wanted to be like, like a Biggest Loser coach or something like that. Like I was really into health and fitness because of what I came from.
Right.
And so when I started having those like dreams of doing something different, the people in my life were like, oh yeah, right. Like, do you know who you are? Like, you like to, like, you drink on the weekends or you do X, Y, and Z. Or like, do you know who you, like, you're not educated. You didn't graduate high school. So it was just this like, oh my God, these people are so unsupportive and they're not even dreaming for themselves. And I wanted more and they didn't. So it was the realization that they were going, and it was like, it got really, really bad. Like lots of drugs, like people in my house I didn't know. They were making keys for their friends who were like selling drugs. And I'm like, I was the only one paying rent at one point.
Stop
So
it.
that was a moment of,
what were you doing to make money?
I was waitressing and I was also working at some cell phone places. So I worked at like AT&T and was a salesperson.
And were you doing drugs with these people in the house?
No, I was drinking and smoking, but I wasn't doing drugs. So that was kind of like my, okay, I need to get out of here because it was just starting to feel really scary, volatile. And I was like, I gotta go. So that was a big turning point for me of I have to get my life together. Like I have to figure this out.
And did you meet your husband during that time?
Yep. A little bit after that, I met my husband.
Okay.
So I met him really young. I was 21.
Yeah.
And I was still in love with somebody else, but it wasn't working out. And so when I met him, I like friend zoned him super hard.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I still love this other person. I had just moved back home into my parents' house where my mom still thought I was, they had moved to Green Bay at this point, but it's still a very small town. But I'm laying in my 4-year-old brother's bed. We kicked him out into like the sewing room essentially. And I'm like, looking up at these glow-in-the-dark stars with these glow-in-the-dark dinosaurs on the headboard. And I was like, oh my God, how did I get here? Like,
I feel like I know that feeling. Yeah. I come from a big family. And whenever I end up home, I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. Okay. So how did it start? How did the confidence build in you to be like, I can start a business? Like, I know you've started several mission driven ventures. Like what was the first one? And did you have success right off the bat?
No, absolutely not. The first thing that I did was open a small studio, like a studio gym that was just one-on-one training.
Yeah. Because you felt confident in your ability to train.
I mean, no, I'll tell you what happened. So I grew up, like growing up, my mom had really bad panic attacks and I watched her have panic attacks over and over. And what I didn't know is she had postpartum depression. So it was like with the anxiety and everything. So once I watched my mom have one, I started having them.
Really?
They're like, I was already an anxious child, but then you watch it and you know how you can think about it and go, do I have that? Oh my God, am I nervous?
Right.
Oh my God. And so then they started happening to me at a young age. So I was dealing with so much anxiety and then social anxiety that even when I met my husband and he would intro me to friends, I'd be like, oh my God, we're going out with friends tonight. I would drink like 4 beers before I'd even go meet them.
Interesting.
Midwest, by the way. So
yeah,
I know
because
women
you
drink
seem
cocktails.
So social. And like, I mean, you have a podcast.
Yeah.
You just talked about talking to 7 people one after the other for an hour at a time.
Yeah. It's not that it's like I knew that I had that in me and that I enjoyed it because I did when I was younger. But then things can happen in your life where it just all of a sudden you're an anxious person and you can't get rid of it.
Kind of like it goes back to what you were just saying about like the people who you surround yourself with. It's almost like an energetic like bleeding of energy, especially if you're like I'm into astrology, which is just like I think certain people are more prone to soaking up other people's energy.
For sure.
So, and I think I'm one of those, like I'm a very empathetic, sensitive person where I can kind of look at somebody and almost intuitively know what they need, like what in healing wise. But with that comes like you can walk into a room and it's like, I feel this, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like when you're like just in college or when I would live with other people, it can be very tough if you're a sensitive person because you soak in not only their traumas, but like their coping mechanisms. And it sounds like a real like medical condition, even like anxiety attacks.
For sure. And so what ended up happening is I was like, it's funny. I think we were probably a year married. And I remember coming home one night. We had like gone out drinking because we're young and that's what you do in the Midwest, whatever. And on the weekends, we would go out drinking together. Great idea when you already hate yourself. So.
100%, which by the way, I can relate. And I'm from the Northeast, but
so you totally know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, actually very similar.
Anywhere it's cold, it's like,
yes,
it's like,
this is what we're doing.
Do?
Yes. And it's like, it's a cycle. It's hard to get out of. It's hard to like figure out different ways to experience joy after that. You have to like totally retrain your
100%.
entire
Do you drink
life.
now?
I still do, but nothing like crazy.
Yeah. I talk a lot about like the reason why you're drinking. Like, is it because there's nothing else to do and it's cold and everybody's depressed? It's like, that doesn't work out that well. But anyway, continue.
Like celebratory reasons. I'm like, okay. So we went out drinking, we come home and I'm already at this point where, I didn't graduate. I'm like starting to blame, when you're not taking responsibility for like your fears and your lack of actions and you start to notice that you resent people and blame other people. Well, my husband is from like such a supportive family and like, he's never experienced anxiety or panic. So he's like, Lori, just like get out there, like go apply for a big job, like something you can do better. And I'm like, but I didn't graduate and I can't even apply to those and I have anxiety. And like we had been drinking and went to McDonald's and I got a 20-piece chicken McNugget. Don't judge. It was just for me. And we came home and I was like I freaked out on him. I was like, you had it so good. You don't understand. Like, I can't do this. And I'm chucking chicken nuggets at his head.
Oh my God. I'd be like, I'm going to want those back after.
But I was dipping them first.
Oh, that's even worse.
And
that's
then
savage.
Yes. And so I have this out of body experience where I'm like, I am going to push everyone away that I love if I don't face my fears, like if I don't figure this out.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful quote by Richard Rohr that says, if you don't learn how to transform your pain, you'll transfer it to everyone around you.
That gives me the chills a little bit, because I feel like as a mom too, like I see how that can happen with my kids. Like my patience can be so thin sometimes, and it has nothing to do with them, but like it's like you have to heal yourself before you become a parent. And it's like, when is that? Because I don't think I was healed when I first had my kids. When I was 28, I definitely wasn't. But then that's also part of their journey, I think, too, to to grow up with the parent that is me, and to watch me work through
sure.
And that's my responsibility to them also, and to let them, like, I always, no matter what, I always apologize. Like I feel like taking responsibility is the first step, right? When you're trying to take ownership of the way that we're showing up in the world, and the effect that we're having on everybody around us.
And I feel like if you're teaching them the tools, like I'm so glad I found tools later, like personal development and all the things to figure it out, because yes, even though these things happen and I watch my mom go through that, I'm like, I am so grateful for it now.
Yeah.
Because my ability to relate to a much larger number of people is like a superpower. And that's only because of seeing that.
100%. I know, it's like all the shitty things that I feel like I went through, that at the time I was like, I am such a victim, or feeling sorry for myself. It's like, well, I wouldn't have a podcast if I would have nothing to talk about.
You would have nothing to say. You'd get on here and be like, life's great, y'all.
Yeah, 100%. I know. It really, the blessings come in the wildest ways sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, so you were chucking chicken nuggets at your then boyfriend.
It was like after that moment of, oh my God, this is me. Like, I'm going to push everyone away from me if I don't figure this out. So I ended up finally being like, I need to do something big. Like I have to just do something that feels really scary to face my fears. And I ended up in like just looking and enrolling in a fitness competition, because that scared the crap out of me. Like being on a stage, like not even speaking, like being on a stage just brought the fear of like, I couldn't even fathom. It was like, I'd rather jump out of a airplane. Like that's scary. And so I just started doing these little things consistently. Like once I did that, I got some of the confidence to go, okay, could I do that again? Like, what else could I do that feels scary? And I just started learning this formula of like, okay, you kind of just have to keep doing these things more frequently that are really scary. And because if you do them too infrequent, like even every 2-3 months, it's enough time to let the fear kind of settle back into your body. And you're like, I'm not getting better. Like, this is always hard. Well, you kind of have to go after it, like, more often than not.
So fitness competitions every month?
No, just things that are scary. So that was like a big one that proved to me.
For you, it was fitness competition.
I did other things. No, so I did a fitness competition like probably 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
Which was a lot. Like that's actually a lot to do.
It's giving me anxiety right now just thinking about it.
It was like a very intense part of my journey.
Because not even getting up there. It's like then every day leading up to it, it's like I'm sure you're very meticulous about what you're eating and the discipline.
It was a lot.
I don't like that.
No. Now I'm like, no more. Because I went from like such a non-disciplined life to such a disciplined life that I never like learned that in between. But one of the biggest places that got me into the entrepreneurship journey, because it wasn't like that got me into like some courage, right? But that didn't get me into a place where I was like, I can start a business. Like, had no idea about business. What ended up making me go into business was in 2008, my husband was the breadwinner for the family. And so he was in mortgage and finance, and he worked for a bank called HSBC, which used to be this massive bank. It was like one of the, you could just say that name and it's like everybody knew what it was. Yeah. And in 2008, when the crash happened, like they laid everybody off. We lost our house. We lost our cars. We were $300,000 in debt.
Oh no.
Because we were living way beyond our means. We were super young, and we just thought he was always getting promoted. Like he was getting promoted like twice a year for years, you know? Yeah. And so when you're young, you just think that's always going to be there. You think it's always going to happen. And so in that moment, because mind you, I'd already gone bankrupt once in my life. So when this was happening
with your
my family,
yeah.
So when this happened, it was like this moment of, this can't be happening again. Like,
right. It's like God hates me.
Yes. I was like, how did this happen? Like, I thought that I got out of this situation.
Right.
And so Chris came home and he told me, and I just remember this like feeling in my body where I was like, I'm never going to let this happen again. Like, I will not. Like, I will not put my like future or myself or whatever that looks like he, you know, I'm obviously having him come with or inviting him with me, but it was like this moment of, I will take responsibility so that it will never be a surprise. Like, I will always go, I have the ability to create something. I didn't know what that was going to be, but I knew it meant like facing all the fears that I had been avoiding.
Yeah. Because what's scarier than everything being out of your hands and you're just at the whim of like this big old bank or the economy and
no control.
Yeah.
And at the time, everyone was like, you know, entrepreneurship, especially in the Midwest and, you know, East Coast too, I think a little bit.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, you know, like entrepreneurship, that's scary, or going on your own.
Right.
Or
like
go
but you
get
have
a steady
real job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that just blew like the steady job idea out of the water. And we're like, wait a minute, the only way to control it is like if you have the control.
Yeah.
And so I had been working at that point at an LA Fitness for $6 per 30-minute session. And I was hustling. So I did the math in my head and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be doing this till I'm 80 if we want to pay that off.
Yeah.
And I can't fathom that. And so it didn't happen right away. It was like, I went back to the gym and you start doing things a little bit different. Like, we started reading different money books. We actually read a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. Okay. Swear to God, that book changed our lives.
Okay, what's it called again? I'm going to put it in the show notes.
It's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and it's by T. Harv Eker.
Okay.
And it's a little corny, but it's the best thing ever because it kind of makes you like say these things out loud because you're changing your money story.
Right. So it's almost like hypnotherapy.
A little bit. Yes. So we were in bed like saying all the manifestos and doing all the things. And
the two of you together.
The two of us together.
And there's power in manifesting together, right? Like with another person when you're on the same page. I love that.
For sure.
I love like, because you guys have been together for
forever.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like 22 years.
It's like, yeah.
So we end up reading that book. But what I was also doing is sharing your vision with everyone around you. That's one of the most powerful things that you can do. So I go back to the gym and I start saying to my clients like, hey, you know, I'd love to open my own gym sooner than later. I don't know how we're going to do that right now here. You know, I wouldn't fill them totally in, but I would just say what I wanted to do. So not even a couple weeks later that I started doing that, because just reading all the books and you get all these, like they give you ideas and whatever, because that wasn't my idea to start saying that. I remember hearing it from someone to like proclaim your passion to everyone.
Yeah.
And so I have a client she's 27 at the time. She's like a year older than me. And she just opens a chiropractic center, which is like kind of unheard of as a female, 27, opening your own chiropractic center. And she was like, okay, Lori, I just opened this. There's an unfinished basement. You can have it and we can exchange. Like, you can train me for a few months. And when you're up on your feet, you can then pay some rent. This was like 2 weeks later. So like a week later, I'm in the lower level of her chiropractic center with my own business.
That's crazy. But also kind of, it contrasts what I've heard from some other people about don't share what you're manifesting, because you don't want like other people's juju to kind of mess it up. Yeah.
If you don't share it, it's going to be a secret.
Yeah.
You have to share with the right people, because I can almost trace back everything to sharing with someone and them connecting me with someone who's opened a door or like moved something forward. It's
how do you know who's the right person to share it with? And also both of us have podcasts. So this is something that I've thought about a lot. It's like, I share all my relationship stuff with the world and I'm like, am I jinxing myself? Like, you know, I don't know. How do you know who to share your stories with or share your desires with?
I think for sharing goals, it is with people who are successful. I've never heard of like a successful person who's actually striving to be successful, reaching down and like, they don't have time to be mean to people, nor do they care, nor do they want to squash your dreams. They actually want you to come up, because it's a rising tide raises all ships, like truly.
Right.
When we're all winning, we just keep winning. Like you get in a winning group and you really do just keep winning. It's the craziest experience.
It's why
of my
the
life.
rich stay rich and the poor stay poor.
Yes, because you have to go be around those people and learn how they think, learn what they believe, and you can't fall back to what you were before. And when you go back, you do fall back. So that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, I feel that. I think that's been one of the hardest things for me, but made such a big difference when I had to let go of some friends that I feel also just like were holding me in a place. Actually, my ex-husband, really, to be honest, too. Like, just they want to kind of keep you in that version of yourself that's limited. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was saying like, oh, I'm going to go speak at my high school. And I just remember him kind of being like, what are you going to talk about at the? And I'm like,
ouch.
Actually, yeah. I'm like, I do have valuable things to say to people. Like it doesn't, and it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around that and believe it. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's still those moments of like imposter syndrome sometimes. But then when you really have the vantage point to look back and see how far you've come, it just gives you a little bit more confidence every time you're able to be like, okay, well, I wasn't able to pay all my own bills 5 years ago, and now I am. So I have something to share.
Yeah.
Like, so.
And what's crazy about that is like, if you had someone who had already done it and was supportive and had like, let's say they have experience in that. Like when they hear you're going to go speak at high school, what someone would have said to you is like, oh my God, that's so cool. We should start lining up high schools and colleges like for you.
Yeah.
Like we should start looking at what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like that's what it looks like to share with someone who's done it before. Or like, hey, I can intro you to somebody who like could help you with all of this.
Right.
That's awesome that you're doing that. That is the difference. It's like they're lighter fluid for you instead of like, ooh, you can't do that. Like,
totally.
I like to keep you right here.
Yeah.
I like to feel like you need me. I like all these emotions, you know?
So funny because when I had my kids, I started meeting a lot of moms, and some of them I'm still friends with to this day, like Katrina Scott, who's our mutual friend. And she's totally one of those people in my life who is like, she's an example of somebody who created a very successful business. And for her, it had been a reality. So it didn't seem so like unattainable. Like for me, when I had my kids, I really I went from like my dad to my husband in terms of like who was in charge of the finances. And like now I'm in a place where I'm really on my own, and it's so empowering. And I do think like to those early conversations I had with people like her who were like, of course you could do it. Like she was there when I like made my first website and like helped me with like connect me to all the people that, and she really believed that it could be a reality for me because she didn't see why it could be a reality for her, but not for me.
Exactly.
Those are the people you need to surround yourself with.
She'll and that's exactly what it is. And she's one of those women who will like force you into your dream.
Yes, she
that's
will.
Who you, that's who you want. Yeah. You're like, wait, am I ready? She's like, oh girl, you're ready.
Yeah.
Here's a stylist. Here's the people. Here's the websites.
100%. Yeah. Literally stylist, website, photographer, all the things. And it's because people like that, like they know that there's room at the top. Like there was never like any competition, I never did a thought cross her mind of like, well, if you start like being independent and successful on your own, then like that might like inch me out or something. That doesn't happen.
No, you have to look at it like this is going to be the stupidest example ever. But like when I see my friends winning, I'm just like, that is so cool. Okay, she's over there winning. Like, oh, I'd love to like experience that. That's so cool. Keep winning, and then invite me to that thing.
That's
That'll
how
be
it
so
is with
fun.
my sister. Yeah, totally. I experienced that with my sisters too, because my younger sister at a very young age hit like success kind of overnight when she started winning like Miss Universe and Miss USA, Miss Universe, and then got big into modeling and acting and everything. And I was still at that point. I was still kind of. I was a teacher and I was a behavior analyst. I worked with kids with autism, which was very rewarding, but also like I got a check every month, every week or whatever, every month. I don't even remember, but it was not for a lot. I'll tell you that much. And, I was at the whim of somebody else. I had a boss and there's nothing wrong with that. I think there is that works for a lot of people, but if you feel confined by it, then I think that's when it's not working for you anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so with my sister, I just remember that was something that I really did have to overcome of like, okay, I don't want to be jealous. And I don't, and of course there's nobody else in the world who I would rather be winning and be successful. Because it's like, if she's sad, I'm sad. I want her to be happy. I want her to be killing it. And then I'm like, wait, actually like I get to be invited to things. If we have a good relationship, then like my life is more fun.
Totally.
And you realize that it's like, being jealous or not wishing the best for somebody else, it does nothing for you. It makes everything worse, actually.
No, and I think it really limits you because you're so focused on like what they have rather than what you can create. And the version of what is meant for you is so much better than what you even see from them.
Yeah.
So it's like knowing that there is, you have to have beliefs that you actually make yourself believe. And it's like, I believe that like I can't miss what's for me as long as I keep on going. And that it's like it's going to be the ultimate joy that I'm able to like experience, and it's going to be amazing. And so if I didn't hold that belief, I could look around and be like, well, they have it better. Like this lifetime.
Or they already did it.
They already did it,
have
all the things. And that only makes you miserable.
Right.
And no matter what, it's like, no matter what you're faced with and what you're deciding and what you're going for, to be happy is simply to choose that you're happy with that. Like, can you be happy with what you're going for and stop looking around at everything else?
Right.
Because that's when your happiness, like you put it somewhere else and you miss it.
So do you feel like you have your eye on the prize though? Like eye on like whatever your ultimate goal is? Because I feel like you're always building. So you're never like at your destination, right?
But so this is interesting because I've done I've done so much work around this in the past few years. I'm always building because I'm a builder, but it doesn't mean that I'm not present building. So I will always build because I'm a creator and I'm a builder, and that's what makes me happy. Like, even if you said like, even if I was like working so hard on this company or whatever, and I finally sell it, I'd probably go take a 2-week vacation. And week 3, I'd find myself sitting by the pool creating something again. Yeah. Because I love the build. Like I will do it till I die. Yeah. Because I love the feeling of building, if not helping someone else with a build. Like nothing lights me up more than going, what's your idea? Let's figure that out. So I am so focused on not just building, but loving my day to day. Yes. So if I don't love today, why? And how can I get back to doing the things that I love? Like right now, like podcasting with you, this is the daydream. So I better be present. Like, could this help me in some way? Of course it could. But also, do I love this right now? Yeah. Like, am I going to get in my car and go, oh my God, that was so like fulfilling and satisfying, and like to sit with this other human who has the same interests, and like, this is it. Like, this is it. So I try to fall in love with every single day and moment, even if there wasn't, the end game. Because for me, I've switched it from like, okay, what if this doesn't work? Building from that place, you're not going to build something you love. You're going to build out of scarcity. Right. Maybe it'll be successful, but you'll probably be miserable all the way there. Right. So it's a build it even if it fails, because you love the day to day so much. And it's like, make yourself fall in love with that.
What's your favorite thing you've ever built?
I mean, I would say right now what I'm building, just because everything that I've ever done has collectively come into the lessons that I'm using for this, which is Glossy, which is a skin routine you can drink. It's a powder packet you put into a bottle.
I've been drinking it all week.
Yay.
I love it.
What do we think?
First of all, it tastes amazing.
Good.
I love
it. Psycho about it.
And I do hot yoga, so I feel like I'm always looking for little like packets with vitamins and minerals. And what else is in it? Is it also a collagen?
So it's hyaluronic acid. Okay. It's a probiotic, it's zinc, it's prickly pear, it's magnesium, it's vitamin C, and coconut water powder.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, because I've been hearing so much about magnesium lately and so much about hyaluronic acid, but I didn't know that can be ingested through the intestine.
Yeah, so our body makes hyaluronic acid.
Right.
But yeah, you can ingest it, and they're starting to, we need all the full studies, but it's pretty cool that it's most likely better than topical, but we'll wait to get some studies.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I mean hyaluronic acid holds the water under that first layer of skin.
Right.
So if we're putting it on topically, like that's great. But if you actually have it in your body, it's under the skin holding water for you.
Interesting. And where did this start from? Because I hear like, you were in skincare and then like mission-driven ventures. I know that's like been your thing, and that you help women start their own businesses. How did you get into skincare?
See, for me, it's funny you say skincare, but I am so on the health, the wellness side.
I guess it's not skincare. It's like
it technically is. So we call it a skin routine you can drink because it is skincare. But when you take care of yourself and you put the right ingredients in, especially for your skin, you're going to see that in your skin.
Right. And your skin is just your biggest organ. So like any self-care is skincare, right?
Totally.
You're going to see it in your face. If
yes. So, okay. So I actually hate doing skin routines.
So do I.
But people are like, you've got great skin, like all these things. And I'm like, okay, but I've only ever eaten really well and drank water. And So I wanted something not only, okay, so one day I was sitting and I was drinking these hydration packets because I'm a toddler. I need flavor in my water.
Yeah, I kind of do too.
I'm like on like my third or fourth packet and I'm like, I think these are like bloating me. And like, what is even in here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I read it and I'm usually a person who reads it, but it was like a decent product. But I read it and I'm like, oh my God, this is really expensive salt and sugar. I was like, I'm paying for really
I know exactly what you were drinking.
Salt and sugar. I mean, it's a lot of them.
Liquid IV.
But I was like, dang. And so I literally felt like I was this girl looking at this hydration packet, asking it to do more. I was just like, why don't you do more? Because I'm so over pills, being in the health and wellness industry.
You should see the amount of supplements I take.
It's crazy. Day. And then the closet that you're not using, like the amount of pills. And I was like, I don't want another pill to swallow. I can't do it.
I can't. Yeah.
I was like, if I only did one thing a day and this was it, what would I put in here? And so we did a bunch of surveys. I actually took on a co-founder. I did a survey into her group, which we're announcing it Friday. So this will be out by then.
Yeah.
But Natalie Ellis, who runs Boss Babe, is coming in as a co-founder for this company.
Amazing.
She loves the product and she was an investor and we're good friends. So she's coming into that. But it was like I had gone to her before we ever had conversations of that and said, can I put a survey into your group of women? Because it was a good way to get 5,000 answers back really fast.
Yeah.
And so we asked what do you want to fix? Like, what are you not feeling good about? And then if we did like this type of product, what would you want it to do? And like resounding amounts of the same answers came back. And it was that the
probiotic is huge. Like just because I've interviewed so many supplement brand founders and everything, and it's the gut health and the magnesium but the hyaluronic acid is something I haven't heard. And then tell me about prickly pear because I only know that in vodka.
So prickly pear is actually like its real name is Nepal cactus, and it's been used forever in like ancient healing stuff. It's essentially like a prebiotic fiber.
Oh,
and they have it in a lot of hangover stuff as well because it like helps you. It's the fiber in there just helps with your gut, it helps you debloat, all of those things. So it actually has a lot, even more like purposes. There's a ton that you can read about, but those were the main reasons we were putting it into this. But I think it's getting incredible results. Also, the probiotic has 30 clinical studies on it. So we felt really good. What we did is we chose less ingredients, but more of that ingredient so they would be impactful. So we chose at the top of what we know, whether the study was like that, this was the amount that was used to make this impact that was shown. So instead of putting in like in the supplement world, they call it like a fairy dusting just to be able to say that it's in there.
So annoying. Or they're like, take 8 twice a day. Yeah, I'm
exactly.
Like, sure.
Yeah. We were like, what would like these 8 solid ingredients be that were like, okay, if you only did one thing a day and it was this, what would you want to be taking?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And is it in stores? Can we buy it now?
It's only online.
It's only online. Okay.
So we're only doing it online. It's at getglowsy.com.
Get Glowsy. And that's GLOCI.
Correct. Okay. You got it.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I mean, there's so much more to say, but I'm getting flagged down over there that I'm going over, that I'm over already, but I have a lot more questions. But I guess if there's just one thing you could leave our listeners with, if they're feeling stuck, if they're feeling scared to start something and fail, where's a good place to start building your dream?
Okay, I first want to say the biggest things start small. You have to be willing to just start with these tiny little things. Like if you're nervous about getting together with someone, like just go get a group of 4 women together literally and facilitate a conversation about your dreams. Like that's it. Like just start somewhere and keep momentum of these tiny actions done once a week. So put it in your calendar once a week. And I promise you that magic will come out of that. And then go research, like put yourself in a room where there are business conversations or people that you can actually like learn from and talk to. So maybe not a really huge event where you're just one of the numbers. Go try to find like a smaller group where you actually talk about business or you say where you're at. And I know that there's a lot of different, podcasts or people that you can follow. I know I have a lot of business events that you can go to for like not a lot of money at all. And then there's also, a range of things you can spend a lot more money on. But go find someone who's doing like putting together groups of entrepreneurs and just make yourself go. Get in the room.
I love that. And if they wanted to go to one of yours, where would they find that?
You can either DM me or go to loriharder.com.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. I had so much fun talking to you. So inspiring.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was so fun.